Vegetable growers in Pukekohe say lessons need to be learned for any future lockdowns, as some essential workers are still being turned away at the border. The Ministry of Health is swamped with 10,000 exemption applications and won't process them all before the lockdown is due to lift on Sunday night. Police are also responding to a torrent of complaints about where the checkpoints have been placed. Perrottet reports.
Setting up 13 checkpoints with 8 of them in the heart of the North Island's vegetable-growing heartland was always going to be a nightmare, and not just for the farmers having to cross the border to get to work.
Tyre repair guys, pump maintenance people, seed transplant people, seed supply companies, stock food companies that aren't being able to get over the border, which have been really difficult for for farmers and for the vegetable growing sector as well.
Brendan Ball runs Ball Brothers, who grow carrots, onions and potatoes that help supply around a third of the country. He says many of those workers are also essential, but it's been hit and miss whether they get through the daily checkpoint. He says all of this could have been avoided if the government listened to their suggestion early on to put the border further north.
Those suggestions were ignored and completely dismissed, which we found very disappointing, because we did point out that putting the border restrictions right in the middle of a production area, as well as the middle of a farming area, this would cause a whole lot of problems, and that's actually what has happened.
The Ministry of Health has people working overtime to process more than 10,000 exemption applications. But 2 weeks in and days out from the lockdown lifting, only 2,100 have been approved for the country's food-growing engine room. Kylie Faulkner, the president of the Pukekohe Vegetable Growers Association, says the frontline police have been helpful, but even they are struggling to keep up.
It's cold, it's miserable, and keeping up with sometimes hourly changes is very difficult. In a perfect world, we would have liked some better planning to be put in place prior to this, rather than it feels like a lot of things have had to happen on the run.
Superintendent Shannon Gray says he's proud of the work of his officers, but many of them are having to make case-by-case decisions.
So we just really need to apply a vigilant and reasonable approach to that and deal with each case on their merits. We're extremely proud of our people who are out there on those checkpoints. They've been out there coming up 2 weeks now. We all know the weather has been pretty inclement, and they're exercising their judgment and making very sound decisions.
He agrees that it may have been easier to shift the border elsewhere.
Look, it certainly would. If we had moved it further north, it may have impacted on other communities. What we see and what we know as a result of doing this, and probably knew this beforehand, is we have a huge amount of people who commute from outside of Auckland to come to work. Likewise, there's other industries that operate further up the motorway that also have people commuting from outside Auckland.
Kylie Faulkner says there's still time to improve things. She says the Bombay checkpoint on Mill Road, Razorback Road, is causing headaches, as it also stops local traffic not crossing into the Level 2 zone.
So you've got a lot of residents or a lot of movements of vehicles, even horticultural businesses that are working within Bombay, which are in Level 3, but they all have to go through that checkpoint at the roundabout or just before the roundabout to be able to go home or to go to the farm.
Brendan Ball agrees.
They shouldn't be getting the people in Bombay trying to get through that border every single time they cross, whether they're essential or not, because even the people who live in Bombay who want to go shopping in Pukekohe, they feel like they can't get across without a good reason.
But Superintendent Gray says there's operational and safety factors involved. He says moving the checkpoint to the southern motorway on-ramp, as suggested, to single out those trying to cross the border, would make it impossible to turn vehicles around. Brendan Ball says it's a matter of common sense and there are lessons for next time.
What the people in Wellington should be learning out of this is what do we do better next time? How can we apply some common sense to what they've been doing, and how do they make it a bit more efficient for people who are legally going about their business?
For these growers and even locals who need to get to the shops for essential supplies, Sunday night can't come quickly enough. For Checkpoint, Perrottet.